Welcome to Board Game Casual. Today we're taking a look at the game Moonrakers. And in this video, I'll talk a bit about the game and how it plays, who I think the game is for, what I like most about the game, what I like least, and I'll wrap it up by giving it a BGG score. Let's get into it. Real quick, I'd like to thank FELTECTORS for sponsoring this video. FELTECTORS makes awesome, affordable neoprene game mats, poker mats, felt table toppers, and more. They offer an array of sizes and colors, making it easy to pick the perfect game mat for your table. And trust me, nothing elevates the gaming experience more than having a nice surface to game on. FELTECTORS products are available on Amazon, or check out all they have to offer at FELTECTORS.com, where you can save $5 off of any order with coupon code OFF5 Board Game Casual. Okay, back to the video. Moonrakers is a competitive deck building game where you are trying to complete contract missions to earn points and bonuses. However, most of the contracts are such that you won't have enough resources in your deck to meet the criteria on your own, especially in the beginning. And therefore, you will have to negotiate with other players on how to split up the rewards and the risks to get them to join you to complete the contract together. This can make for a very long game, as I would say 75% of this game is about negotiating. The deck building in this game is pretty interesting. The card play is very tight. By default, on your turn, you can only play one card. So if you want to play more, you better hope to play a reactor card, because that will allow you to play 2 more cards. And if you're trying to cycle through your deck, you better hope to also have a thruster card, because that's what allows you to draw 2 more cards into your hand. The first player to 10 points wins, which doesn't sound like a lot, but when joining in on a mission, you could be as likely to lose points as gain them depending on the hazard dice you roll and how many shields you can play. Similarly, when negotiating, you might be happy to join a mission just for some coin and no points. But with only 10 points to win, you might need to be careful about your opponents getting too many points on a particular mission, and might need to be a stickler about getting some for yourself just to prevent them from moving too far up the track. I thought this game was a ton of fun, but at least with my friends, it was very long. We started out the game in the early afternoon right after lunch, and we actually had to pause the game to go out to dinner and played for another hour or so after we got back. Tough negotiators and drawn-out negotiations can make for a long time in between turns. It takes time for the player leading the contract mission to understand what everyone can contribute, who they ultimately want to join, and then all agree on how to split up the rewards. The missions themselves go pretty quick. Each player that joined just plays their hand as best they can. But then after that, assuming it was a success, the mission leader has the opportunity to spend their rewards to buy cards and ship parts from the market, which again takes some time for them to go through the options and figure out what they want to buy. So this can feel like a lot of waiting, especially for players who aren't participating in the missions. If you don't want to lead a contract mission on your turn, the other option you have is to take a rest action, where you get to refresh your hand, gain a coin, and gain another secret objective card. In hindsight, I may have overlooked the value of the rest action. While those objective cards can be a bit of a gamble and getting something you'll actually be able to complete, they seem to be a really good way to earn points that others can't. So next time around, I'm thinking I'll try to make the rest action a bigger part of my strategy. The production quality of Moonrakers is fantastic. The game boards and player boards are nice and chunky with a sleek matte finish. The dice are great, the cards are a good size and feel like they're a good quality. The plastic ships are not only different colors, but each have their own unique sculpt and look great. Though I do wish they were just a tad bigger and heavier, as they can be a little fiddly to pick up. The shining star in terms of production, though, are the metal coins. These are some of the nicest I have seen. They're a hefty size, have a good weight to them, you can easily read the denominations, and they feel great in the hand. Other publishers should really take note here, because these are metal coins done right. The artwork is fine. I really like the color palette overall, but the staticky dot matrix style single color images basically just fade into the background for me. The iconography is nice and clear. I really like that they kept the cards simple with a big icon, so you can easily see what someone else is doing from across the table. If I had one wish, it would be for the text to be just a little bit bigger on those specialty cards that have a lot of bonuses or conditions. But overall, a top-notch production. Okay, let's talk about what I like most about Moonrakers. I like that you're actively engaged no matter whose turn it is. At a minimum, when someone calls out a mission they'd like to target, you're at least looking at your hand to see if it's something you can contribute to and thinking about what you'd want in exchange if you can. While it does take some time to save up and buy upgraded cards and ship parts from the market, they feel really powerful. Ones that remove a resource requirement from a mission, for example, give you a lot of negotiating power. It feels really good when you're able to complete a mission as a team. We definitely failed a few, but the ones we passed, especially by the skin of our teeth, as everyone's greatly anticipating the next card flip, made for some great experiences. The production is fantastic, especially those metal coins. Now let's talk about what I like least. And I don't mean for this to sound like a big list of cons, but really more things you should understand if you're thinking about picking up this game. Moonrakers is very group dependent. As my buddy David put it, I love the game, but I worry it brings out the worst in me. Negotiating is such a big part of this game. If you're playing with sticklers or people who are unwilling to join in, it could definitely take a toll on the fun. While I love deck building games, the card play in Moonrakers is very tight. The fact that you can only play one card to start can be really rough. In the first few rounds, I definitely had a few hands with no reactor cards, which really limits your ability to do anything. And it's a lot harder to cycle through your deck than other deck building games. Since if you've got a thruster card to draw 2 more cards into your hand, you better also have reactor cards that let you play them. I think the roughest part is that no matter what cards you play, you always discard your whole hand. So this doesn't even allow you to kind of sacrifice cards in a way that let you build up for a future turn. The hazard dice can be brutal. The fact that you can join a mission and end up losing points, coming out with less points than you went in with, feels devastating. I know a lot of our negotiating was around how are we going to divvy up the hazard dice. Personally, I wish that instead the missions netted positive victory points and the hazard dice simply determined how many or how few you get, and then just raised the endgame limit from 10 to something like 20 or 30 points. In the end, it would still make the same amount of time, but at least this way the game always feels like it's progressing. As I mentioned, it can be a long game, and also quite slow going at first. In our setup, we were dealt a pretty bad layout of contract cards, all with really high requirements right out the gate. Half of the missions were one that collectively all 4 of us had no way to succeed at, even if we played all of our cards in our hand. I kind of wish this game had the contract cards organized in sort of a level 1 deck, level 2 deck, level 3 deck way, so that you could ensure that at least a few of the easier ones would come out earlier in the game, just to get things up and running a little faster. So many of our initial contracts required upgraded decks just to have a chance at completing, but no one at the table was making enough money to upgrade our decks because we couldn't complete any of the contracts. Final thoughts on Moonrakers. I think this game is very polarizing. Overall, I really like the game, and that's coming from someone who doesn't typically like a lot of negotiating in games. If you like games with a lot of player interaction and games where it's up to the other players to police someone from jumping out too far ahead, this is definitely one you might want to check out. It's a game I find myself thinking about a lot and itching to play again, but at the same time, it's very dependent on who I want to play the game with. It's also a game where I think you need a group of 4 or better yet 5 people to play it with. I do wish the game played a little quicker, as I did find myself wanting to do more of the actual deck building part and being able to buy more cards quicker. There's actually an alternate rule in the rulebook that suggests putting a timer on the negotiating. I really like this idea. I could see it putting some deals in a take it or leave it position, and it sounds like it would keep the game moving either way. Funny enough, there was another alternate rule where it suggests that players aren't allowed to discuss specific quantities of resources or cards in their hands, and can only speak vaguely about them. For example, I can help with some of those shield requirements. I can cover a decent amount, but not all. We started the game trying to use this rule since this is how we saw a lot of people in playthrough videos playing it, but within just a few turns, we immediately switched over to talking specifics like, I can contribute 2 shields, because our negotiating was just getting so bogged down and we were failing missions. In terms of scoring, I'm giving Moonrakers an 8. The restrictive deck building, the pacing, and the luck in which contract cards come out in the beginning could almost drop this game down to a 7.5, but the superb production quality brings it right back up to an 8. For me, this is a fun game that's uniquely different from anything else I own, so I'm very happy to have this one on the shelf. By the way, here's a quick pro tip when negotiating contracts. We found it best to stack the potential rewards on the contract itself, i.e. coins, hazard dice, victory points, etc. You'll need to substitute your own marker for the potential victory points. I like to use my iron clays, for example. But this way, it's much easier to visually propose how you might split things up among players, and it makes it much easier to make counter proposals as you negotiate. If you've played Moonrakers, I'd love to hear your thoughts down in the comments. I'm expecting some pretty strong takes on this one. And if you'd like to see how I and 3 of my other friends ranked Moonrakers against 4 other games we played over an epic weekend of gaming, be sure to check that video out on the channel. I've got the link down in the description. Thank you so much for watching, thank you for liking and subscribing, and I'll see you next time, here on Board Game Casual.